I'm here with Chris Watts today. He's Manager of Transport for City of Perth. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Excellent, excellent. Tell us, so you're one of the panel of speakers today?
I am. It looks like a good panel today. Quite a lot of experience across the board, which is pretty exciting.
And what are you likely to talk about with regards to City of Perth's perspective on transport?
We're looking at some of the short-term innovations that can happen in transport. Some items such as e-scooters, trackless trams, and some of our variable parking charges that we might introduce.
Okay, excellent. And does that mean more parking options for people that commute into the city?
It gives us options to manage the parking, so it provides parking when it's needed. When there's parking available, we can lower the cost. When it's in high demand, we can increase the cost to manage our transport needs.
Excellent. And what about public transport in terms of as far as the buses and the CAP buses that run through the city?
We're heavy supporters of public transport. The bus services are run by the Public Transport Authority through Perth, and we support them where we can.
Anything particularly that is a highlight that you're talking about today?
We'll talk a bit about hydrogen refuelling, which I think is something that's quite exciting coming forward. There's a lot of impacts that this will have on the city in terms of making sure that our environment is nice for people to walk around, cycle around, but more importantly to activate the streets. So we'll have more people on the streets having al fresco as a result of the improved environment, as a result of that new technology.
Wonderful. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
Tell us a little bit about these trends that you see going forward in the future.
Well, there's a few key mega trends that I see as sort of shaping Perth's mobility ecosystem over the next couple of decades, and there's some really exciting changes that are going to be taking place, I think, in Perth, but also all around the world. So yeah, I'm going to be addressing a few things like autonomous vehicles and urban aerial mobility and all of that sort of stuff, big data that supports it, city sensing, all that kind of thing.
It's quite exciting. What about electric vehicles? Is that something that's on the cards?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of looking at decarbonisation as a key driving force behind some of the transport decisions and investments that are being made at the moment and into the future, of course, as well.
So tell us a little bit about what the Freight Logistics Councils do.
Yes, so the Freight and Logistics Council is a council of members from both private sector and government who have experience or knowledge in freight and logistics in WA. Right. And the purpose of the council is to get industry and government around the same table at a senior level, talking about the main strategic policy issues for industry. And then what we do with that advice is feed that into government and directly to the Minister for Transport to make sure that policy decisions around freight are incorporating an industry perspective and a commercial perspective, so we get the right outcomes.
Well, it's quite an important task, and I think it's quite, there's a lot involved, isn't there?
There is, yes, especially we're multimodal, so we look at not just road and rail, which generally comes to top of mind when you think of freight transport, but we also have shipping and air freight as well in the equation there, so it's quite broad what we look at.
Absolutely, that just makes it a whole lot broader, just as you include those two, the freight and the shipping airlines as well. So tell us a little bit about some of the conversations and talks that you'll be having today around innovation.
So today I just wanted to present some concepts and ideas that are being discussed currently across the different modes of transport when it comes to moving freight, around what potential innovations might occur in the next 10 years or so, and what technology is there and is being further developed, and potentially some new technologies as well that might come into play.
Well, our transport portfolio is Department of Transport, Main Roads and Public Transport Authority. So we cover everything, and then we've got the Port Authority, which is a sort of an adjunct to that. My job is to deal with some strategic projects which bring those three transport agencies together with a common vision of the future. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is really in that territory of not what's happening immediately, but what's over the horizon, and leading in how do we transition ourselves to a 2030 type of world.
What is 2030 looking like for you from your perspective and the planning that you see going forward?
2030 at the moment is a lot of thinking rather than a lot of action. I mean, I guess what's interesting is how quickly government policy changes that action. So the debate going on with the Fed between the two parties, the two major parties for the forthcoming federal election, is all of a sudden tipped on some conventional thinking on its head by starting to fast track towards electric vehicles and potentially autonomous vehicles more quickly than what we were thought. So And that's really picking up global trends and patterns that other governments are doing as well.